Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I hope you're ready because today we are cracking open a cold case, a really cold one from the streaming wars of 2024.
It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
It really does. It is officially January 2026. Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah.
And somehow the internet is still arguing about Star Wars, the Acolyte.
It is the zombie debate. It just will not die. And you know, it's fascinating because it's not really about a TV show.
No, not at all.
It's become this huge proxy war for everything, for fan culture, for Hollywood economics, for, how we even talk about entertainment.
It's a whole culture war flashpoint condensed into one show. And the reason we're dusting this file off today is that a whole new wave of this just exploded on social media. It basically reignited the central mystery we all thought was solved. Why was this show, a show that cost $250 million, actually canceled?
And that really is the $250 million question, isn't it? Because if you spend even 5 minutes scrolling on X, you see two completely different stories. Oh, completely conflicting histories being written in real time.
Right. You have story A, which is let's call it the emotional narrative.
Yeah.
The show was bullied out of existence by toxic internet trolls.
There's review bombing there.
Exactly. And then you have story B, the cold, hard business reality, which is that the math just didn't work.
And that's our mission today. We are going to try to cut through all of that noise. We're putting aside the fan theories, the YouTube rants, the feelings, all of it.
All the shouting matches.
All of them. We're going to look strictly at the hard data. We're talking Nielsen ratings. We're talking budget sheets, direct quotes from the execs who made the call. Because I think we need to understand how these decisions are actually...
I completely agree. Because... math doesn't really care about our feelings or internet comment. And when you're talking about a $230 million price tag, there's a certain kind of gravitational pull you need from the audience.
Right.
And if that gravity just isn't there, the whole project just drifts away. It doesn't matter how much passion was involved. So let's set the stage properly. It's January 2026. The Acolyte has been off the air for a while. Why are people suddenly yelling about it again?
Well, it always starts with a spark on social media, doesn't it? On January 19th, a guy named Jacob Suggs, he co-hosts the That's Just Great podcast. He posted a lament on X.
Okay.
He was responding to one of those viral prompts, what canceled TV show will you never stop thinking about?
Well, that's a dangerous game. You're just asking to open up old wounds with that one. So what was his take?
His take was the classic story A. He wrote, and I'm quoting here, "Still can't believe that they pandered to the worst, loudest people online and scrapped the rest of what was planned for the Acolyte."
Pandered to the worst, loudest people. Okay.
Yeah. And he went on. He called it deeply upsetting and super frustrating that the series, never had a chance.
Okay, so let's unpack that for a second. That is the core of the emotional argument, right? The belief is that Disney, one of the biggest corporations on the planet,
A behemoth.
got scared by some angry people on the internet and just pulled the plug to make them happy. It paints them as really reactive.
Yeah.
Almost afraid.
Exactly. It frames a cancellation as a kind of moral failing or, caving to bully. But the source material we're looking at today, which is a forensic analysis by John F. Trent, it pushes back on the hard.
Okay.
Trent calls this narrative tired and utterly false. He even refers to Suggs as a Disney Star Wars shill, which are his words, not mine.
Utterly false. Well, that's pretty strong language.
Yeah.
But I think I see the fundamental disagreement here. It's about agency.
Yes.
Suggs's argument gives the agency to the toxic fan. They killed the show. Trent's argument is that, that's just a fantasy.
It is a fantasy. The core of the counter-argument is that the idea that some online complaints, no matter how loud they are, could actually influence a multi-billion-dollar company's strategy. Yeah. It's just, in the source's words, left.
Right. Disney doesn't cancel a $250 million investment because people are mean on Twitter.
No, they don't make decisions based on the vibes of the comment.
That feels like such a crucial point that gets lost in the heat of these debates. We think that because our timeline is on fire, the CEO must be paying attention.
The CEO is not scrolling Twitter.
No.
No.
The CEO is looking at an Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly. They're looking at retention graphs, churn rates, cost per subscriber, all of that.
And we actually have testimony from the people who are looking at those spreadsheets, which brings us to the executive perspective.
Yes, this is the part that often gets ignored in favor of the spicier internet drama. We have quotes from Alan Bergman, the Disney Entertainment co-chairman.
Okay, so this is the guy who literally signs the checks. What did he have to say about it?
Well, he spoke to Vulture, and his wording is so precise. It's almost a masterclass in corporate. He said, "We were happy with our performance creative-wise."
Whoa, hold on. Happy with our performance creative-wise.
Huh.
That's really interesting. He's not agreeing with the critics who said the writing was bad or the lore was broken.
Not at all. He's defending the art. He's saying, we liked the show we made.
But you can feel the but coming, can't you?
Oh, it's a huge but. He follows up with, it wasn't where we needed it to be given the cost structure of that title.
Cost structure. There it is. That's the phrase. It sounds so boring and corporate that people's eyes just glaze over, but it's actually the entire story in 2 words.
It is the Rosetta Stone for this whole thing.
So what does he actually mean by cost structure? Let's break that down.
It is the most polite, boardroom-approved way of saying, we spent an insane amount of money and not enough people showed up to justify that specific expense.
It's all about the ratio.
It is all about the ratio. It is not about how many people watched in a vacuum. It's about how many people watched relative to the money spent.
Right. I mean, if I spend $10 on a YouTube video and 1,000 people see it, I'm a genius.
You're a viral sensation.
But if I spend $200 million on a blockbuster and only 10 million people watch it, I am so fired.
You have a historic disaster. And Bergman was explicit about this. He said that's the reason why we didn't stop. Not the troll, not the review bomb, the cost structure. The equation was just completely unbalanced.
It feels so abstract, though.
Right.
You know, cost structure. But for the people actually making the show, it must have felt terrifyingly real. Do we know what the creative team thought?
Yeah.
You mentioned we have comments from the showrunner, Leslie Headland.
We do. And her comments to the wrap are, I think, incredibly revealing. She said she was surprised by the swiftness and the publicness of the cancellation.
Sure, I get that. Usually they drag it out for months. We're exploring our options, all that nonsense.
Yeah.
This was just a clean cut.
A very clean cut. But, and this is the absolute key, she said she was not surprised by the cancellation.
That's a huge tell. Think about that. If she really believed her show was a smash hit that was being unfairly targeted by a few loud trolls, she would have been shocked.
She would have been blindsided. She'd be saying, I don't get it. The numbers were huge.
But she didn't say that. What did she say?
She said, and I'm quoting again, once I was getting particular phone calls about the reaction and the criticism and the viewership, I felt like, okay, the writing's on the wall for sure.
The viewership. She listed it herself right there with criticism. She saw the numbers.
She saw the numbers. She had access to the internal dashboards at Disney. She knew the patient was flatlining long before the public announcement came.
And that just leads us right into the core of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We can't just take their word for it. We have to look at those numbers ourselves.
Let's do the data dive.
Okay, so let's rewind. It's June 2024. This is a massive Star Wars launch. We're in the High Republic, something new, Jedi everywhere, lightsaber fights. The marketing was at full blast. How did it open?
According to Disney's own press release, so remember, these are the numbers they chose to share, the Acolyte got 11.1 million views in its first 5 days.
11.1 million. Now, to you and me, that sounds like a lot of people. That's a huge number.
It sounds enormous. But in streaming, context is everything. You absolutely have to compare it to its direct peers on the same service.
So what's the most recent Star Wars show before it? Ahsoka.
Exactly. Ahsoka pulled in 14 million views in its first 5 days.
Okay, so let's do that math. 14 million for Ahsoka, down to 11.1 million for the Acolyte. That's almost a 3 million viewer drop-off.
It's a 21% drop. A 1/5 decline in your audience from one show to the next. And here's the thing that makes it even worse. Ahsoka basically required you to have a PhD in Star Wars animation. You needed to watch Clone Wars and Rebels get it.
That's a great point. Yeah, there was a lot of homework for that show.
A lot of homework. The Acolyte was pitched as a fresh start, a mystery thriller anyone could jump into. It should have been easier to watch.
And yet, significantly fewer people showed up than for the Deep Lore sequel series.
Right. And that's just Disney's number. When we look at the Nielsen ratings, which are the independent third-party industry standard, it gets even shakier.
Okay, let's hear it.
Nielsen reported that The Acolyte premiered with 488 million minutes.
488 million minutes. Again, big, impressive-sounding number. Almost 500 million. But I feel a but coming. There's a catch, isn't there?
There is a massive catch. And this is the nuance that gets lost in the Twitter art. The Acolyte premiered with 2 episodes.
Right, they dropped 2 at once. So that 488 million is the total for both of those episodes combined.
Correct. When you do a 2-episode drop, you're doubling your minutes viewed number is naturally going to be inflated because all the hardcore fans are going to binge both.
So to do a fair comparison, an apples to apples compare, we have to look at other shows that only dropped 1 episode at premiere.
Let's do it. The Book of Boba Fett. It premiered with a single episode, and it pulled in 389 million minutes.
Whoa, wait. Hold on. So Boba Fett had half the available content, just 1 episode, and it got 389 million. The Acolyte had double the content and only managed 488.
Yes. It barely beat Boba Fett's single episode performance with 2 episodes worth of runtime. It suggests the actual number of individual viewers was way, way lower.
That is not a good look.
And it's the same story with Skeleton Crew. That did 382 million minutes with its single episode. So the Acolyte's 2-episode strategy was really masking how weak the per-episode engagement was.
So if you were to, like, roughly have the Acolyte's number to get a single episode estimate, you're talking about, what, 244 million minutes?
Something like that. Which is it's just nowhere near what you'd expect from a flagship Star Wars show.
And how does it stack up against the real heavy hitters, the A-listers of the franchise?
Oh, it's not even in the same league. It's not even playing the same sport. The Mandalorian Season 3 premiere, 1 episode, 823 million minutes.
Wow. Okay.
And Ahsoka, which also had a 2-episode premiere, just like The Acolyte, direct, perfect comparison.
Right. Apples to apples.
Did 829 million minutes.
Oh, that hurt. So Ahsoka did almost double the viewership with the exact same release strategy.
Pretty much double, yeah. So when Alan Bergman is sitting in his office talking about performance, this is the chart he's looking. He's seeing a bar for The Acolyte that is half the height of the bar.
You have a show that is performing at 50% of its predecessor, like a 5-alarm fire.
It's a huge problem.
But, shows can find their audience. I mean, word of mouth is a powerful thing. Maybe it was a slow burn. Maybe it was going to build momentum.
That is always the hope, right? That you'll see that week over growth as tell their friends. But the data shows the absolute opposite.
So that brings us to the finale.
The finale. This is where you expect a bump. People who maybe fell off in the middle often come back to see how it all ends.
Especially for a mystery.
Yeah.
The whole point is finding out who the villain is. You have to come back for the big reveal.
You'd think so. The week the finale of The Acolyte debuted, the show pulled in 335 million.
Wait, say that again. 335.
335
million.
It went down. From the premiere's 488. It cratered. It fell off a cliff. It dropped from 488 million at the start to 335 by it ranked 10th on Nielsen's streaming originals chart.
10th place for a Star Wars finale.
And historically, this was the lowest Nielsen recorded viewership for any live-action Star Wars ever.
That is just devastating. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. People started the show, they gave it a shot, and they just bailed. They didn't even care enough to see how the mystery was solved.
And for a streaming service, that is the ultimate nightmare scenario. It's a catastrophic failure of audience retention. That's what...
And now that phrase, cost structure, is starting to echo in my head.
This is where the hammer comes down, because if you are delivering the lowest finale numbers in your franchise's history, you had better have a budget that reflects that small, niche audience.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and guess they did not have it.
No, they absolutely unequivocally did not. This is where the story goes from disappointing to a full-blown financial disaster.
Okay, let's talk about the price tag. What are we looking at?
According to reporting from Caroline Reed in Forbes, the gross production cost for the 8 episodes of The Acolyte was $230.8 million.
$230 million.
$230. Now, to be fair, they filmed in the UK, so they got a nice tax credit from the British government.
Okay, so that helps.
It helps a bit. They got about $43.8 million back. So the net spend, what actually came out of Disney's pocket, was around $187 million.
$187 million is still, I mean, that's a staggering amount of money for a show that was getting crushed by its peers and losing its audience week after week.
It works out to somewhere between $28 million and $32 million per episode.
Let that sink in. $30 million for about 40 minutes of television. That is the budget of a decent-sized every single.
And to really put that number in perspective, the source material brings up a comparison that I think is just perfect for showing how wild.
Okay.
Think about the Arrowverse shows on the CW. The Flash, Arrow, that whole universe.
Sure, yeah. Network superhero shows. Fun. A little cheesy, but they ran for years and years.
Exactly. They were the backbone of that network for a decade. Do you have any idea what their per-episode budget was?
I'm guessing it wasn't $30 million.
Not even close. The Arrowverse shows generally cost between $2 and $3 million.
$2 to $3 million. So literally 1/10 the cost of an episode of The Acolyte.
1/10. And here's the kicker. At their peak, those CW shows were pulling in 3 to 6 million viewers on broadcast TV.
So let me get this straight. The CW was getting comparable and sometimes even bigger audience for 10% of the cost.
That's the ROI, the return on investment. That's the cost structure problem in a nutshell. The CW had a sustainable business. They spent a little, they got a decent audience, they made a profit.
And Disney spent a fortune and got an audience that was barely bigger than a cheap network drama.
I mean, The Acolyte looked good, don't get me wrong. The lightsabers were cool, the sets were impressive, but did it look 10 times better than The Flash?
Did it provide 10 times the entertainment value? The audience clearly said no.
They said no with their remote controls. And that's the thing. You can't just throw money at the screen and assume that guarantees an audience. The inefficiency here is just staggering.
And when you frame it like that, the cancellation doesn't feel like a creative choice or a political one. It feels like a basic accounting necessity.
It's like buying a fleet of Ferraris to deliver pizza pizza. It doesn't matter how great the Ferraris are. The business model is fundamentally broken. You cannot sustain that kind of burn rate.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And this is where that whole they cave to the trolls narrative just completely falls apart for me.
It doesn't hold water.
Corporations are greedy. If the Acolyte was making them money or driving a ton of new subscribers, they would not care if every single person on the internet hated it.
They would have renewed it for 10 seasons. They don't care about hate. They care about profit. The silence of the audience was the killer, not the noise of the troll.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. Because the counter-argument is that the toxicity, the so-called woke themes of the show, were the reason for the low viewership, that the bad buzz poisoned the well.
And that's a fair hypothesis to test. We should take it serious. Does having a diverse cast, or what some critics call a woke agenda, does that automatically kill a show?
And the source material actually has a perfect control group for this experiment, which is rare.
It's a perfect A/B test. The source points to Percy Jackson and the...
Great comparison. Also, Disney plus Dave, also a big fantasy adaptation, aimed at a similar audience.
And this is the crucial part for the argument. The source asserts that Percy Jackson has the same woke agenda that critics attack. It has colorblind casting, modern... If that ideology is the sole reason for failure, Percy Jackson should have bombed hard.
The get woke, go broke theory should apply equally to both.
It should, but...
So what did Percy Jackson do?
Percy Jackson absolutely crushed. Its 2-episode premiere brought in 572 million minutes.
Okay, 572 million.
Yeah.
That's already significantly better than the Acolyte's 488.
A much stronger start. But more importantly, it held that audience. Luminate data showed the first season got over 3 billion minutes watched in total.
3 billion. So people showed up, and then they stayed. They finished.
Stayed, they engaged, and now for the final nail in the coffin, the cost. Percy Jackson cost between $12 and $15 million an episode.
So half the cost of the Acolyte.
Half the cost.
For better viewership.
Much better.
And better audience retention.
Better retention, and what was the result of that successful equation?
It got renewed.
It was renewed for a 3rd season in March of 2025.
That just, it lays it all out so clearly. It isolates the variable perfectly. You have 2 shows on the same platform. One costs half as much, gets more viewers and live. The other costs double, gets fewer viewers, and it died.
It proves the variable wasn't the agenda or the trolls. The variable was execution and economic. Percy Jackson was a product that worked. It found an audience, and it was budgeted response. The Acolyte was not.
The math worked for the Greek demigods. The math failed for the Jedi. It's that.
It really...
You know, it's funny. The whole trolls killed the show narrative.
Yeah.
It actually gives the trolls way too much credit. It makes them seem powerful.
It does. It empowers. It creates this myth that a few angry YouTubers can bring down a $250 million Disney product, but the reality is just so much more boring and, frankly, more brutal than that.
The reality is that the general audience, the normal people who aren't online all day, they just didn't watch it.
They tuned in for the premiere, maybe watched an episode or two, said, not for me, and went back to rewatching Blue.
And you can't justify a $230 million spend on the backs of only the most hardcore fans. You need the cash, and they lost the casuals immediately.
That dropped from $488 million to $335. That's the story of the casual.
So if we go back to that original tweet from Jacob Suggs, that it was deeply upsetting and super frustrating. I get that. It sucks when a show you love is canceled. We've all been there.
Absolutely. We all have that one show we're still bitter about.
But his conclusion, that Disney pandered to the worst people. The data just completely dismantles that.
The data renders that claim utterly false. Disney didn't pander to angry fans. They pandered to their own shareholders. They looked at the balance sheet. They saw a massive expense next to a shrinking viewership line, and they made a business.
It's just a math problem.
It is always a math problem.
It really brings us back to what Leslie Headland said. The writing's on the wall. She saw it. The executives saw it. And now, looking at the data, we can all see it too.
And I think it's just a valuable lesson in media literacy. When something fails, our first instinct is to find a villain. We want to blame someone. The trolls killed it. The woke mind virus killed it.
The studio interfered.
Right. But most of the time, the truth is just the product didn't find a big enough market at the price it cost. It's boring, but it's true.
It's the lemonade stand principle. If you spend $100 on fancy organic lemon and artisanal sugar, but you only sell $50 worth of lemonade, you go out of business.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if your neighbor yelled at your stand and said your lemonade was too progressive. It only matters that you didn't sell enough to cover your costs.
And the Acolyte was the most expensive artisanal lemonade stand in the entire galaxy, and the line just wasn't long enough.
So looking forward, what does this mean for Star Wars? Are they just going to stop taking risks? Is it Skywalker's forever now?
That's the big fear, isn't it?
But I think it means they'll stop taking $230 million risks on unproven concepts. We're already seeing a budget correction across the industry if they had made the Acolyte for, say, $80 million.
Right. Closer to a Percy Jackson.
Still be on the air. With those viewership numbers, an $80 million show is a modest success. A $230 million show with those same numbers is an extinction-level event.
It's all about right-sizing the investment for the audience you expect to get.
You can tell niche stories. You just have to use a niche budget. You can't have a blockbuster budget for an art house audience. That era of streaming, the blank check era, it's over. And The Acolyte might have been its last, most spectacular casualty.
Well, as we wrap up this forensic audit, the verdict seems pretty clear. The weapon that killed the Acolyte, it wasn't a lightsaber, and it wasn't a mean tweet.
It was a calculated
death by spreadsheet, a classic Hollywood story.
Indeed.
Before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on. We spend so much time analyzing all the noise online, the controversy, the argument. But in this case, the controversy might have been the only thing keeping the show relevant.
That's a fascinating point. The people fighting about it were the only people still talking about it.
Right. So here's the question. If a show generates massive online controversy but very low viewership, does that controversy actually matter to us? Or is silence, the sheer indifference of an audience that just doesn't show up, the only thing they truly fear?
Indifference is so much more expensive than hate. Hate is still a form of engagement. Indifference is just zero.
Something to think about the next time you see a hashtag trend. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.
And check those budget sheets, folks. That's where the real story always is.